TV Asahi, which is our affiliate in Japan, has been monitoring it. They've discovered, this is what they're reporting, the fire was discovered in the northeastern corner of Reactor 4. That's at this Daiichi plant, and it's happening right now. So it's a very, very worrisome situation. We know that the fire was discovered. We have no idea if it's been contained or if it's just getting worse, but that's the last thing they need right now, a fire at this plant, given all the enormous concern that's going on. It seems one disaster leading to another disaster, and we can only imagine what happens next, but we're worried about it. We're staying on top of it, and we'll get back to more information as we get it. Aisha, I got to tell you, as soon as you think that maybe this story is being contained, the development's contained, something like this breaks out.
Yeah, indeed, and we need to ask and we need to get the information as to what the source of the fire was, where it's taking place, specific location, what caused the fire. We need to know that. There are just many, many unanswered questions, people raising other questions about whether we're getting enough transparency from those who are leading the operation there at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Let's bring in our Tom Foreman now, who's standing by with some more information on the situation and really a breakdown of the lay of the land. Tom, I know that you're at the wall. Give us some overview of the landscape we're talking about.
I'll do that, Aisha. And as you and Wolf just pointed out, one of the real problems here is a lack of information. The Obama administration itself is getting concerned about the lack of information about what's happening. But let's zoom inside here and talk about all four of those facilities. As Wolf mentioned a short while ago, there you see them. That's the way they were before all of this started. This is the way they are now. They have in 1, 2, and 3, they've had what are believed to be partial meltdowns. They've had cooling problems in all 3 of them. You can see the results of some of the explosions that have happened, the hydrogen explosions. Number 4 is up here, though, and I think this is very important when you talk about the northeast quadrant of it, which would be up in this area, because that is the same place where you would have this container for the spent fuel rods. These are outside, and this is important, these are outside the hardened container that is used to contain the active nuclear activity here. They're put outside there because they're considered a lower threat overall. But I was talking to a nuclear expert earlier today who said that is actually a bigger problem in this case simply because they can be more easily exposed. Here's what we've had so far. The highest radiation dose near here was measured in this area yesterday at about 400 over here. It's equivalent to over 57 chest scans in just a few minutes. More importantly, if you're talking about these rods up here, which would be about 60, 70 tons of them, even though they're somewhat degraded, if the water has drained away from them, because they're kept in water so that they don't overheat, the coating on the outside can catch fire. If it catches fire in this uncontained fashion, because this is just a building around it, it's not the real hard container inside, then the dust, the ash, the smoke, all would carry cesium with them. Cesium is the same thing they had a problem with at Chernobyl, and it would spread out. That's what has everyone afraid here. In fact, if these were uncovered with water, one nuclear expert said to me, you couldn't get within 50 yards of this without having a fatal dose of radiation. That's why all these workers are being pulled back because of concerns about just that kind of thing. Let's widen it out and look at what the Japanese government has done here. This is the 12.5-mile zone in which they've told everyone that they really have to get out. About 70,000 people from that area were forced to evacuate. Beyond that, though, if you go even wider, you get to this one, the 19-mile radius. And out here, you have people being warned to not even go outside. Close your windows. Keep homes airtight. Don't run the air conditioning or any kind of ventilators. Hang your laundry indoors. And if you're outside, take off your shoes and your outer clothing before you come inside. This is very serious, and in large part because of number 4, Wolf. That's the one right now we have to watch very closely, even as we watch the other 3.
And we're told, Tom, that the fighters are working this fire right now. They're trying to contain it, but it's still continuing. The fire, by the way, is in the building over there at that reactor. That's significant. Let's discuss with Jim Walsh. He's our national security analyst who's been helping us. He's from MIT. What's your immediate reaction, Jim, when you hear that yet another fire has erupted at this building, at this nuclear reactor complex?
Well, it's obviously it's disturbing. We started to talk about this a couple of days ago, that everyone was focusing on the reactors, and maybe we need to pay attention to the spent fuel ponds, especially after those hydrogen explosions. But I think it's curious that a second fire has started in the same building. I also take note of the fact that the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, on its website today in an update, also points to potential spent fuel pond problems at reactors 5 and 6, the other two reactors that were in cold shutdown. If that's the case, then all 6 reactors have issues all at the same time. Obviously not as dramatic or threatening as what we're seeing right now at reactor 4. But it raises an issue that we started to talk about yesterday. When you do modeling, you can imagine you have a problem at one reactor and you can deal with that problem. But when you begin to have problems at multiple reactors and you're cutting back staff because you don't want to expose them, then there are really limits to what humans can handle in terms of compounding crises all at the same time. And of course, one of the concerns here, Wolf, is that if you had a major release of radiation in that area from the spent fuel pond, what do? Do you send those 50 people home? You can't do that, because then the reactors 1, 2, and 3 are in danger. The ones that we're hoping the reactor cores will cool down. But if you keep those workers there, then you're putting them at tremendous risk. So I think you're really facing a devil's dilemma if something serious happens and you get real radiation exposures at reactor 4 or at one of the other reactors.
You know, there's a scale 1 through 7 of dangers at a nuclear reactor. Chernobyl was the worst, a 7. 3 Mile Island, what was a 5? There's some suggestion now, Jim, that these reactors in Japan, they're at a level 6, somewhere between 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. Is that what you're hearing as well?
I have heard that. I heard that a French a nuclear official or nuclear engineer had offered that assessment. In some ways, you could understand it, because in Chernobyl, you had the outright release of large amounts of radioactivity because there was no containment vessel, and you had a steam explosion and a fire that carried that directly into the environment. That has not happened yet. We are not at that point, but we seem to be a little worse, and I know this is shocking for people here. We're actually in a worse position than 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island, yes, there was a meltdown, but most of that radioactivity was contained. The containment vessel held. And now we're somewhere in between that. We are worried about the containment vessel at reactor number 2. It's not confirmed that it's breached, but there's worries about possible damage. And then we have these fires and potential problems with the spent fuel pond. So you could see why people would say we're somewhere in between a 3 Mile Island and a Chernobyl.
But Jim Walsh, it's anxious to say here in Atlanta, let me jump in there if I can, Wolf. How long can a team of 50 people or thereabouts work to prevent a full meltdown, which hasn't happened in this case? Let's be absolutely clear for our viewers. But how long can they go for with this small team to prevent that eventuality?
I think they have to be up against it. Why? You know, there are 50 of them. They've been working, you know, round the clock since Friday, Saturday. When they're out there now, they have to wear suits because of the high levels of radiation. So, you know, you do anything in a suit and it's more difficult. You're losing water through sweating. These are physical tasks, right? They're not sitting at a desk typing at a computer. They're up there trying to move equipment, trying to deal with hoses, fight fires. This is tough work. And you're doing it across multiple sites. So I personally don't see how they can sustain this. I would hope, and I talked to a former person who used to work in the nuclear industry here in the United States, I would hope that they would call on international teams and get some international, Americans, IAEA, other French, other people in there to help them. They're going to need the help.
Jim Walsh, stand by for a moment. I want to bring Chad Myers into this conversation. Aisha, hold on for a moment as well, because TVSI, just want to update our viewers, TVSI now reporting that they're battling a blaze of fire in this one reactor. Chad, walk us through what we know about this, because this is so disturbing. On top of everything else, they don't need another fire at this sensitive location where there are a limited number of personnel that are already trying to contain the potential of radiation fallout.
As Jim just mentioned, there was a fire in this same building a few hours ago, many hours ago. But that fire put out an immense amount of radiation. There was a big spike in the radiation when that fire was going. The fire was put out, the spike went down. Right now, Wolf, the wind is out of the north at almost 20 miles per hour. A major cold front has gone through the Fukushima Daiichi area, so that is great news, as the wind would push any potential cloud or even the ash and the smoke and any type of moisture that does have radiation would push it well to the south and not toward the west. The west here would be bad because that would be Tokyo. That's about 150 miles away. Wind not blowing that direction and not going to blow that direction for quite some time. These are models that are put out by the U.S. government modeling where a parcel, just a piece of air, where it would go if you just let it go. Or for that matter, a balloon that really wouldn't rise very much. Most of the wind taking it out to the ocean. A few of the parcels that go high in the sky go farther to the north and to the northeast, and then many of the parcels that stay close to the ground will be right here along the ocean, not blowing toward Japan at all, blowing out to sea. I know you think radiation goes in all directions, and it does, but a lot of it gets blown around with the wind as it gets pushed out to the ocean. There's not a better direction that the wind could be right now for this potential situation.
So what I hear you saying, Chad, is that if you're a resident of Tokyo, and there are obviously millions of people in Tokyo, at least right now, you don't need to evacuate, you don't need to run away, because I know that there are a lot of folks who just want to get out of Japan right now, but what I hear you saying, it's contained to a relatively small area of Japan.
That's absolutely correct, right along the shore. Now, the shore does move north to south. It is a straight line north to south right along where this facility is. And so if you are south of the facility, a town called Awaki, that would be in the way. That's 30 miles away, wind blowing in that direction, then eventually turning it out into the ocean. I'm sure authorities in that town are already telling people, you need to get out of the way. That is outside the ring that's already been drawn. So that town is definitely going to be looking at getting out of the way of this. This is really quite an amazing map that we've put together here. All of the aftershocks that have come with this system, it has been this 9.0, they upgraded that yesterday. I know you may be hearing that. You go, wait, it was an 8.9. It was upgraded to a 9.0. So the wind coming down the coast and then blowing out to sea, not blowing where the population center is right here. If you notice that right there, though, see that little aftershock there, Wolf? Probably hard for you to see, but it's one dot. That one dot is very close to Mount Fuji. You know, the last time Mount Fuji erupted was 1707. After an 8.6 earthquake erupted in the ocean not that far away from Mount Fuji. That's the last time this volcano has gone off. Could you imagine?
Chad, it's Aisha here in Atlanta. Another question for you in relation to these radiation levels that we're talking about and the emission of radiation. You've talked about the wind direction. Another concern that people have, and I'd just like you to try and allay fears or explain the situation, is rain. Is there any rain in the forecast, and what would that mean for the situation?
There is not rain in the forecast. There was rain in the forecast as the cold front went by, and that was today. There's been some snow around because temperatures are down around 30, but the next potential precip that could come in won't be until Friday and Saturday. So all of this dry air, think of this like just in the middle of our country where a cold front comes by and dry air pushes it just in one direction for many days. That's what they're going to see. Thank goodness. They're going to see a perfect forecast for something like this. It couldn't get better for the people of Japan than the front that just went through today.
Chad, appreciate it. Stand by for us for one moment. I want to bring in Jim Walsh, if I can. He's been helping us decipher the situation that's ongoing at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Jim, let me ask you this. We're getting word that helicopters are now being used to fight this blaze in the building of Reactor 4. What does that tell you about the situation?
Well, I think it tells you that it's desperate. You know, I had seen reports earlier that they might use helicopters. Officials had announced that they were going to consider that. obviously, they have to find. There must be some access point. Either a roof has been blown off, or there's a hole large enough, or some way to get water into the area and onto the fire. The helicopters themselves can only carry so much water, and you begin to wonder here about you need water and seawater for reactors 1, 2, and 3 because they need to have water. In this case, salt water they're using to keep those reactor cores cool. You need a water now to fight what is a second fire at reactor 4. Essentially, there are big demands on being able to mobilize large amounts of water, whether it's seawater and fresh water.
Guys, hold on for a moment. Hold on for one moment.